That's right, I'm back. I'll manage to squeeze in one more Saga video before the Romancing Saga Remaster comes out in December. In video games, players are normally restricted to areas that the developers have planned for them, but sometimes it might be possible to go out of bounds and reach sections that we were never supposed to reach. And who else would show you the hidden areas of Romancing Saga on video? Jesus? Pfft, yeah, right. First, I'll explain the means of performing these tricks. I'm using CodeBreaker version 10, which has a large number of Romancing Saga cheat codes. Not all of them, mind you. I don't see anything on favor with the gods, but oh well, there's still a ton. There are 3 codes that enable special things to occur when pressing the L2 button. The third one is the Moonwalk, which is pretty self-explanatory. The first one is the Super Run, which increases the character's running speed by a ton, but be warned that there are issues. When a character gets in contact with a wall, they might be sent back a bit, so in tighter spaces, it might actually mean a slower progression than normally. Also, after a lot of experimentation, I was able to go out of bounds with this one, but it was by no means consistent. It only happened once, so I wouldn't call it a reliable method of doing this. And finally, there's the Warp 9 run, which lets us achieve speeds to consistently break through walls. CodeBreaker, take us out of orbit. Set a course for Romancing Saga. Warp 9. I'll be sure to save the best for last. Let's start with the basic explanation of the rules. NPCs and certain objects do still block you, and of course exits or passages to other zones do still transport you. There's certain other obstacles, but otherwise you are free to move around. It also seems like changes to your vertical position only happen while in areas where you can actually walk, meaning that you can end up underground or floating above ground. Typically, returning to a normal explorable area fixes this, but weird things in general do happen. Also, this and other L2 tricks don't work when on a boat or a horse. It's strictly for running around on your own. You can use the Warp 9 run to dash through certain sections like the icicles in Valhalland's icy caverns or the Frosthold fortress. Warp 9 won't help you with locked doors, so the only thing to see in Merseburg is the fact that you can squeeze into the jail cell where Raphael was held. In Weiserheim, while in the Tower of Lamar, you can slip through the walls and see that the tower actually is just a series of rooms placed on the same height, where you just warp around from one room to the other. Given how the camera does all in its power to focus on the current room, I couldn't really muster up the patience to figure out if there was a secret hidden room or not. I'll assume that there is none, and even if there was, it would be empty anyway. Moving over to Kjaraht, the Estamir sewers have that whole slave market room, which had slaves in cages that you could release. It always bugged me that there was this one woman in a cage that always remained there, clearly an oversight by the devs. And wouldn't you know it, even if you get into her cage, nothing happens. Oh well. Moving back to the ground level, if you ever wanted to visit Wuhan in North Estamir but were just blocked by the guards, then don't worry, the arrow is fake and takes you nowhere. The same is the case for the 2 palace guards in the city of Tarmita, but interestingly enough, remember how you sneak into the palace with an underground entrance when the water drops down at night? Despite the night version of the city being a completely different zone, you could still glitch through the water and get inside the palace basement by night. There are no guards here at all, likely because the quest is not active. The structure of this section feels weird, and for a second I thought I saw some secret room, but no. This place just has a lot of elevations, so it adds up to the whole place looking like this from afar. At the end, you can find the throne room, which is empty and leads back where you came from. There is no way to get back to Tarmita, as is the case during the quest. I'm guessing that this is the way everything works originally, until the boss fight in this room, which changes everything and lets you leave. Since this is not happening, I just left the way I came. Funnily enough, when leaving, I landed in the night version of Tarmita, just like during the Water Dragon Ride quest. With no way to leave to the map, nor progress the quest, the game ends in an unwinnable state. Oh, and no, even at night, the palace is still not accessible. Moving on to Lake Malar. The one fun thing that I can show here is that you can go quite a bit back and see a little bit more of Strom's den. And if you go behind the waterfall, you can see that Strom's model is already there, all the time, just waiting to be summoned for a cutscene, which at this point of the game will likely never happen. Now we're moving westward to the new road. Did you know there's quite a section of the map hidden away behind the warp point to Tarmita? There's even a few segments of the new road with much less detailed textures that don't even stick together with the rest of the road, and I don't think we ever see them. Weird. Now onto some more disappointing discoveries. In Mount Tomae on Ligou Isle, we have that whole entrance to the Netherworld, which can get permanently sealed behind the gate. Sadly, the zone arrow that appears here is fake, and even if you zone through the door, you won't pass. I'm sorry. Now onto Walon Isle. If you're like me, you are always annoyed by this one area that looks as if you should be able to move there, but the only thing to see there is just a bunch of rocks. So no, this isn't a scrapped zone passage. The only other noteworthy thing on the island is that in the northern area, which is this simple straight passage, you could slip to the east and see the Twin Moon Temple on the horizon. And I don't think the camera would normally let you see that. But yeah, that's about it. Now moving on to the Pirate's Coast. Ever wondered what this small gate was hiding? Well, it's just a door with no collision detection. I wondered a lot but found nothing else that would be interesting. Even going to the supposed exit led nowhere. I guess you were always supposed to just use your ship to leave. Oh well. Moving north to Northpoint, you know that whole cliff area where you normally can only see glimpses of the port? Well, through boundary breaking, we can see a bunch of stairs from the main part of the town, but there's no buildings here at all. I'm guessing they originally considered giving the player a better view of the town, but it became more work than it's worth, and the idea was dropped. Oh, and there's also a beach area. Not much else to say. Now onto the bigger stuff. Remember how in Crystal City, there's 2 guards who forbid you from using the world map exit in the western section? Well, the arrow doesn't take you anywhere, and the whole area behind it isn't that interesting. This part only truly has a purpose in the cutscene that plays in Aisha's scenario. It seems like the world map arrow was just put there to be consistent with the logic of the cutscene, but since it'd be awkward to have a city with 2 world map exits in different sections, they just faked it. Really, really weird. Funnily enough, Almost everything from this section is available from the plaza with the fountain in front of the palace, but it's not quite functional. Oh, and the palace itself has a duplicate of itself below, which really confused me, but I assume it's there to serve as a reflection in the water around the fountain. Now onto Crystal Palace. Remember what a pain it was to always need Albert in your team to enter the palace? Now, it's no longer a problem. Funnily enough, when I entered Neidhart's throne room, the end of the Aquamarine quest played, despite me never being given the quest from him. When I tried entering here on a really freshly made Barbara, I entered the throne room and there was no reaction here at all. Nobody to interact with. Crystal Palace also has a room on the left and right, both with guards blocking the passage. The left one had no zone arrow, so unsurprisingly it is fake and cannot be interacted with. But the one on the right is real. I was expecting to get into the king's room, but nope. It is Neidhart's chamber, and it's just a 2D plane. Nothing interesting to be found, and the zone arrow outside, despite saying Crystal Palace, doesn't seem to work. At least I had issues with it, so I kinda used the triangle to get out of here. I guess there was an idea to add this room to the game, but it got scrapped. Now on to even more interesting stuff. Let's go back to Isthmus Keep. Remember that door that Albert and Diana escaped through? That section is on the map, and with Warp 9, you can actually reach it. There's no collision detection on the door, and it probably was designed with the lighter daytime colors in mind, and it looks really off in the darker endgame color scheme of the map. Curiously, when starting the game as Albert, I was able to glitch through the wall that gets removed later during the opening. I zoned out early, and no cutscenes were playing. And Albert's theme was still heard. And, well, if you look at the door, you can tell we're not in the normal version of the zone. A few steps later, I saw a ton of monsters. This made me wish I had activated some cheat codes to boost myself, but they didn't move. Then I realized that these were just 2D images. The same ones that appear during that one cutscene as the invasion of the keep starts. The area is full of them, and there's no functioning exits anywhere. Alright, let's move on to the grand finale as we explore the Bafal Empire. Remember that depository in Aurefont? You can actually sneak into it, but it looks exactly as it does during the respective quest, with nothing to interact with. The exit doesn't seem to work properly, at least I had some problems with it, but the triangle button easily gets you out. And just so you know, I tried this on a fresh save as well, and even then it looks the same, nothing gets triggered. Next is Loban. Ever wanted to sneak by and get through the secret entrance in that one guy's house? Well, no dice, it won't work. But for those who forgot, this is the same house where Albert gets out of the prison in his scenario, and there is indeed no zone arrow here. So it's not a real passage to a different area that you go through. Oh, and speaking of that, when Albert lands in the Loban prison, glitching out doesn't offer that much. It feels like there is an exit, but reaching it results in a fade to black. You need to leave as intended. But hey, what about those two guards that stand in front of that one place? Well, you can sneak past them, but unfortunately, there's once again nothing to really see. The stairs of the building don't even have collision. And now onto Melvir, the capital. Ever notice that this is the only city where the port is a separate section from the rest? Well, if we go warp 9, we can see that the port is still part of the regular main city section. And on the flip side, breaking boundaries in the port lets you go back and see the main section too, just with a few parts missing. My guess is that these two were originally meant to be one zone, but either things were getting too big, or maybe because of how the pirate invasion quest functions, it was decided that these two should be separate, but the model persists across both. As a bit of useful information, the guards of the castle can be skipped and you can get inside without the need to proving yourself to the king. The chambers of Gian and Lord Neville are freely accessible if you slip through the guards. Oh, and by the way, when Gian is in your team and the guards are guarding his door, the room is actually empty, so there's not much point to it. The Warp 9 run also lets you access all the rooms that hide treasures during the Pirate Invasion quest. Funnily enough, when doing this early, the treasures are there to begin with, and some do have the alarm trap. It only works on monsters, of course, but it's a bit funny to think that an alarm is heard in a treasure chamber and the NPC guards do absolutely nothing about it. Oh, and just as a warning, there's ambush traps in a few chests which contain monsters that might overwhelm you if you attempt this very early in the game, so disarm traps might be a useful proficiency to use beforehand if you're attempting this. At the far back of the castle on the second floor, there's another closed room with two doors giving you access to it, and it turns out to be the Emperor's throne room. Just as how we see it during a few quests. Interestingly enough, the Emperor is there, but cannot be interacted with. However, one guard behind him can be spoken to, and he utters the following line.
The tower is taken! If they bring flyers now, we're finished!
Which doesn't seem to ever be used in the game. I don't recall anything about the destruction of a tower, but you do fight a flying monster here during the Pirate Invasion quest, so maybe it was a scrapped idea for a part of the quest? In any case, it's funny that the game has plenty of lines that are never used anywhere, but were still recorded in English. I wonder what else is hidden away. Now onto two other rooms on this floor. The one on the left is the Princess's Chamber, the room that we see in the flashback during one of the quests. The collision is there for the most part, but a bit glitchy in a few others. And also interesting to note that the triangle sends you to the world map here, as if this wasn't a normal area within the castle. The room on the right is the Emperor's bedchamber, exactly what we see during the Ailing Emperor quest. Like with the other room, triangle sends you to the world map, and as for the collision, it's simply not here. You can go through the bed, the walls, and everything. This likely was always meant to just be there for a cutscene. Okay, we've only have one more place to visit, and it is what I've been waiting for all these years. Bruelle. The one city that has no quests within it. Since I first entered it, I saw these two guards over here, and behind them is a zone arrow. What's behind it? With all these other secrets, I could kinda guess what would be hidden away, and even if I wasn't always correct, I was at least close. This one, however, is a complete mystery to me. I heard rumors that the original SNES game had one quest within Bruelle that did not make it into the remake, and this zone arrow is the only hint of it existing. But is it true? Is there something to it? Does it do anything? What's the secret of Bruelle? What was hiding behind this arrow all these years? My purpose in life is to walk onto that arrow. The arrow is fake, the stairs are fake, and when you come here with Albert in your party, which forces Diana to appear, there is still nothing. In the end, nothing was hidden away here. A bit disappointing, but at least now I can move on with my life. I would like to thank everyone for watching the video. I only showed a few select locations, but as I explored more in the game, a vast majority of places didn't have much to show. The dungeons especially were just tunnels in the ground with nothing noteworthy in them, and plenty of more open areas at best had small oddities with their skyboxes. With this video, I mostly try to focus on the interesting areas, or locations where players might think of using this little trick. I hope you got something out of it. Thank you for watching, and I wish you a wonderful day. P.S. Watch out for glitches.